Hey guys, Prometheus with the Affinius project again. Part 3 of the grand finale. Here's what's about to happen to you, an economic love story or 50 Shades of Green. We were talking in part 2 about the Hegelian dialectic and how that comes to work here. And what I want to talk about now, we were talking about the problem, the real problem being debt, but the problem that will be sold to you is a currency collapse. And the currency is going to collapse because of that debt. It has no choice. It's gotta Something's going to have to give, and they're going to let it give within the bond markets because this is a controlled demolition. I want everybody to realize that this system has reached a point where it's sky high, but its foundation's no good. So they've got, unless they're going to destroy themselves in the process, they've got to do a controlled demolition and put in a system that they will still control, but that'll be sufficiently different from the system we have today to to quell some of the problems. So let's go over the reaction of the sheeples, as I call it. This is going to begin in the Japanese bond and derivative markets, and after that, it's going to cascade across the continent back to Europe and anywhere else that the debt exceeds this ever-shrinking manageability level. Once Europe's fully enveloped in this credit crisis, you can expect America to follow suit soon thereafter, probably within 6 weeks. Interest rates on bonds will begin to skyrocket, leading to increase in interest rates for residential and commercial property mortgages. Soon interest on will have to increase on all loans across the board, including interbank lending. And once Basel III is thrown into this mix, which we talked about in part one, there's going to be credit freezes due to the decreased in leverage requirements and increased capital requirements of Basel III for banks. Banks are no longer going to be allowed to expand their way out of trouble anymore. That's the basics of Basel III. That kills the bank's ability to expand their way out of trouble. And because that's just too dangerous now. When you're in a controlled demolition, you can't have a bunch of rogue elements running around out there doing crazy stuff. So that's why they're pulling everything in right now. Physical commodities are going to begin to bring an ever widening premium over those paper markets. Electronic cash is still going to be abundant, but actual paper currency is going to be harder and harder to come by in this shadow world of capital controls that they put into place. We also talked about that in part one. Central banks are going to end up, they're going to end all this printing and they're going to begin to pull back on the reins of currencies, trying to tighten up those money supplies, trying to bring inflation under control. Prices at the gas station and grocery store are going to explode. Corporate profits are going to implode, and those equity markets are going to just tank like you wouldn't believe. People's savings and investments, their ever precious pensions and 401ks and IRAs are going to begin to evaporate into this cyclone of a deflating debt bubble. People are going to be losing their entire life savings in a matter of weeks, and their house, the main source of their net worth, is now going to become worthless as well because no one's going to be able to get a loan to buy a house. And even if they could get that loan, they're not going to be able to afford that interest because you're going to see, double-digit interest. Uh, and banks are going to refuse to fix rates when interest starts moving that fast. They're going to refuse to fix rates for probably more than a month, but at the outside, 3 months because of spiraling inflation. And when all this hits the fan, unrest is what's going to follow. People are going to lose their entire life's work in a matter of weeks, and they're going to be demanding solutions for this economic disaster. They're going to be demanding that the same system that put them into this mess be saved so they can save something, anything, after the fall of this system. Unemployment's going to skyrocket as companies lose their market share and credit markets dry up. It's going to be murder and mayhem. Cities will burn. Some are even going to claim it's Armageddon. The economic powers of the world at that point, when people are demanding a solution, they're going to schedule a meeting to solve this this hyperinflation crisis and bring these currencies under control. And that's where we come to the solution that's going to be rolled out on this. And this is going to be the solution brought to you by your good friends at the World Financial Cartel. Because you see, the problem's now clear. You can forget the debt, forget the credit freezes, forget all that stuff that brought us here. Nobody's going to want to talk about that. Nobody's going to want to talk about their role in that. What they're going to be talking about is this currency crisis we face. But it just so happens they're going to have a solution ready to roll out. But they're going to jawbone it for a while, make it look good for the masses. But here's what they're going to do just as soon as you're hurting bad enough to accept it. First, this solution that I'm telling you about is I put in some fairly fine points, and those may or may not be there, but they're going to bring out something very equivalent to what I'm talking about here, if not this system in a nutshell. First, they're going to create a world body, or they're going to use one of the world bodies that they've already created, like the Bank of International Settlements, or the World Bank, or the UN, or somebody to manage world currencies and the amount of those currencies in circulation. Second, any country that agrees to enter into and abide by an agreement to allow this world body we just talked about to control the amount of that country's currency in circulation according to the rules prescribed in an agreement will receive this huge discount in the amount of their sovereign debt owed. They're probably going to cut that debt. I'm talking like an instant haircut to bondholders, like 50% or better. And in some instances, maybe even more, particularly like Japan. They're going to have to probably cut that by more than half. So this is probably also the point where governments are going to begin to nationalize people's retirement accounts. All for the safety of those people, of course, because, boy, they're taking such a hickey here, we got to save them, People will be applauding that. There's going to be a big segment of the population that's going to be applauding the government taking over retirement accounts, beginning to nationalize those. The third stipulation of this is in this 5-part plan that I'm putting out here is that all participants of all participating currencies of each country from that point on will be backed by a basket of commodities specific to that country or union. And when I say that, I mean, for instance, Great Britain and China, who lack natural resources in relation to their population. China has a lot of natural resources, but they also have 2 billion people to take care of. So they don't really have a lot that they can expend into the world market. The same with Great Britain. They have, for the size landmass they have pretty good resources, but it's just a very small landmass. So what they'll probably do is back their currencies primarily with gold and silver. Other currencies that are richer in natural resources in relation to their population, who can, in other words, be net exporters of natural resources, like the United States, will probably back their currency with a basket of commodities approach, like energy reserves, real estate, mineral reserves, and possibly some percentage of gold and silver in that basket. And these currencies are all going to be pegged together with the circulation agreement. And the amount of that currency in circulation will only fluctuate according to the value of the commodities pledged by the country. And that value will be determined by the markets. So if, oil goes up, the United States value of their basket of commodities will go up. They will get to increase their amount of currency in circulation. Same thing with precious metals, things like that. Fourth, all the excess liquidity over and above the prescribed circulation agreements, or circulation limits in the agreement will be removed from the system. So now what they're going to have people do who are using these new backed currencies around the world, they're going to have to turn in their old currencies, like $200 old for $100 new. So think again of that October release date of the $100 bill that they've been printing for 3 years. But of course, it's going to be easy for them to do this to your bank or your investment account. They can just, with a keystroke of a computer, slash the amount of money in your account by the prescribed percentage, with just a touch of a key. And in case you've been wondering why all these bank systems have been having so much trouble lately, it's because Dodd-Frank prescribed that they do this, that they put this software capability into these accounts. Dodd-Frank had all this stuff about banking software and protections, and it wasn't protections. It's about putting in a way that the banks can just bring up a program and slash everybody in their bank's accounts by 40%. Also, they've been watching certain accounts, these hot money accounts. They've been watching them and identifying them and tracking them so that they can know where that money is when they get ready to slash the amount of money in circulation. Fifth, all the resources and commodities used to back the currencies in these basket of commodities of these specific countries are going to be placed under the de facto control of the central bank that issues that currency. So, and thereby the Bank of International Settlements. So the countries, these countries' legislatures won't be able to cheat this agreement by pledging to sell off the resources or selling them off in any other manner than what is prescribed by that agreement. This is going to put all the resources of every country under the control of these central banks, and that's what they wanted. So the last part of this, it's a Hegelian love story. Um, that's that. This, in the end, they're going to control all of the resources of the world because that's what they've always wanted from the beginning anyway. And the people of the world, well, most of them are going to get down on their knees and thank them for saving this system that left them almost broke and penniless after a lifetime of work. All because at least some small pittance of their pension or 401k was saved and left in their possession. After all, the problem was worldwide, so obviously we needed some vestige of world government to solve this, right? Nathaniel Rothschild, I think it was Nathaniel, said, "Give me control over, or allow me to issue a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its laws." Now the Rothschilds will be saying, "Give me control over a nation's resources, and we're going to destroy that antiquated notion of national sovereignty." So when it's all said and done, they're not only going to control the currency, they're going to control the resources that back that currency. And then, they're going to have control of those resources to the entire world, and they'll be able to just mete it out like they see fit. And if that doesn't chill you to the bone, then you haven't been paying very close attention to the world outside your office or home recently, because these guys are crazy. This is when they're gonna bring out, with this chaotic opportunity, this is gonna bring out the worst parts of their tyrannical scientific machine of control. And it's all gonna be in the public good, of course, only to protect you and them from any reprisals from fringe elements of society to demand these silly things like freedom and self-determination, these outlaw concepts of a bygone era. And the compliant media is going to parrot this line to the people. And sad though it may be, when presented with their futures going up in the fires of these national currencies, people are going to go along with this, because a failure of this system is going to leave them penniless and without means. Freedom be damned, after all. Hell, I might lose my spot at the country club. So for those of you who think this could never happen, just research in depth what they've done so far as financial reform and regulation since 2010. And the media isn't going to tell you what's going on. So you're going to have to look this stuff up. But when you look at the evidence, the laws and the regulations, the financial moves they've made objectively, well, I challenge you to come up to any other reasonable conclusion. In writing this, I've relied on a lot of my old friends in banking circles because I was a banker for 9 years myself. But they don't really understand the full system that I'm laying out for you here, because they're so compartmentalized. It's called compartmentalization in game theory. It's knowing what you can do to provoke a response in your opponent, or even someone that's working for you. And then these guys have been doing it for ages. So, I know some people are going to be naysaying this, but I stand by these conclusions. So much so, I'm betting my own livelihood and life savings on it. This scenario is going to happen. I've never been more convinced of anything in my life. But when? That's what we're going to go over in the next part. So follow me to part 4, and we'll talk about the timing of all this. Thank you.